In late 1883, great-grandfather Hugh Wallace left his family in Wilmington and travelled with his workmate McMahon to Callabonna Station in the state's northeast. The two men had a contract to fence a 20-acre paddock near where the homestead was to be built. It's presumed they rode from Wilmington to Bruce and caught a train to Quorn. There they would have caught another train to the railhead at Farina on the newly completed train line. From there they had to travel east over 300 kilometres to Callabonna. We have no knowledge of how they travelled from Farina, but it's assumed one of the station workers met them at Farina with a horse and dray and took them to Callabonna. The journey from Farina to Callabonna took 1 month. In 1883 there were few formed roads east of Farina. The Strzelecki track was in use by then, so it's probable they joined the track about 40 kilometres east of Farina and followed it to Nob Hill. At Nob Hill they would have left the Strzelecki and travelled on to Mount Freeling, where there was a police presence, on to Mount Fitton and then Mullawutna Station. A rough track led from Mullawutna under Lake Callabonna. After passing under the lake, they would have left that track and travelled north about 40 kilometres across trackless land of saltbush, sand and countless flies before hitting Callabonna Creek. The Ragless brothers had set their tents up on the northern side of the creek near the permanent waterhole, so Hugh and the two other men would probably have crossed the creek a little further to the east. On arrival at the station, Hugh and McMahon started work immediately. Everyone on the station lived in tents as no building existed until 1886. On the 7th of December, Hugh and McMahon went in different directions. Hugh walked across the creek about 300 metres and spent most of the day cutting wood for fence posts and railings. McMahon worked closer to their tent about 200 metres away. Sometime during the afternoon a dust storm blew in. McMahon made his way back to their tent, but Hugh sheltered under a coolabah tree. A bolt of lightning struck the tree, killing Hugh immediately, and a number of sheep who were also under the tree. After the storm passed, the other men realised they could no longer hear Hugh chopping wood and went in search of him. On finding his body, he was buried immediately. Richard Ragless wrote to the police at Farina to report Hugh's death. The shock of Hugh's death so upset McMahon that he refused to remain in the district. Drawing the few pounds he had earned, he started to return to Farina. The Ragless brothers tried to persuade him to follow the wagon tracks leading from the station out to the main road, but he felt confident he could save many miles of travel by crossing the lake instead of taking the circuitous route around it. Sadly, he too perished, dying of thirst on the lake. His body was discovered some time later, but by the time a party was sent to recover it, unseasonal rain had buried his remains forever. It would have taken some time for Richard Ragless's letter to the police to reach Farina. As the tragedy of Hugh wasn't reported in the papers until around the 20th of December, great-grandmother Mary and sons Hugh, John and Albert probably didn't know of Hugh Sr.'s death until around the 17th or 18th of December. The boys were only 16, 14 and 12 at that time. Life would have been very difficult for the family.